typing in. I think this is going to be a little bit of a just a quicker video than some of the more recent ones. But this is just a little bit tying into my previous video, discussing both the practicing and mock behaviors of what will actually amount to maybe a deadly blow for different people in our life, but then also the appearance of different weapons, or just very prominent and salient, significant appearances and icons of things of any kind that could actually, in more cases, mean us great damage or harm, whether intended to or not. And I wanted to talk a little bit about like, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's an old movie called Pulp Fiction. It had Samuel L. Jackson in there, and it was just it was a Quentin Tarantino film, I think. So anyone who knows Quentin Tarantino knows like how strong those images from his films are. And actually, as it were, in the location where I live, I one time met the person who was the producer of that film. In living in real life, I was delivering a pizza one night, and I had actually been interested in film for a couple years prior to that, and there's some strong film programs near where I'm at. But I had also been attending state in a college in a rural area, in a bordering state, and I met this man on a delivery run for a pizza store. And we got to talking, and I found out he's actually the person who had produced that movie Pulp Fiction. And then he was just an interesting guy who knew a lot about film, and he was showing me cool stuff in his apartment. Like he had a piece of paper, and he was like playing with the light. And he was like, "See, if I did this, you look really cool. You look more interesting if I did this with the light." And then he actually took an interest in me, not knowing me from a can of paint, but just appreciating the banter and rapport we had. So we got to talking for like 15 or 20 minutes, and then I had this really cool manager at the store who I could probably do a video about that manager and how the type of person he was, another interesting person. But he was calling me on my phone started ringing, and he was calling me like for 10 and 15 minutes. Like, "Did you get lost? I told you how to find that place. It's not hard to find." So I let him think that I had actually got lost, but I was bantering with like a real Hollywood high roller, or like a player, a veteran from Hollywood in our local community, who I think he had some beautiful company with him, as it were, that was also getting frustrated by our conversation, just to show you that he's a real type of guy doing real stuff. But we were wasting a lot of time, but also having interesting conversation. But back to the Pulp Fiction, that's a very significant film, and with a lot of like very vivid images. I can remember the 90s, and the 90s had a lot of very classic moments in all forms of art and media, whether sports, music, film. And there's one scene in this film, Pulp Fiction, where I think a man had actually been abducted, as heinous as that was, maybe he might have been like a bystander and a witness in some type of crime. I can't remember the exact plot, but they had no choice but to take him along with him, and they were at one point gonna be obliged to do away with him. These two lethal and deadly yet humorous and lighthearted professional killers, being Samuel L. Jackson and I think John Travolta, who are partners. And in one scene, like, by that man being himself, he actually started to win them over, his captors and assailants, and they actually had changed their prerogative towards him, and they had decided that they had become friends in that moment, and they were gonna spare him. But at one point, I don't remember if it was I don't remember if it was John Travolta or Samuel Jackson, but they had the gun that they were originally gonna do him away with, and then they're like, he's in the back seat, and then the killer, who's now his friend, turns around with a loaded firearm in his hand. He's like, yeah, and then he actually the car hits a bump, and then he blows the man's head off with a gun that at that point he had no longer intended to harm him with, but yet the gun was still loaded and trained upon him by the man's he had inadvertently pointed a loaded firearm at the man, and then the car experienced a bump which caused him to engage the firearm and blow the man's head off, who was having a friendly conversation with him. And but it goes to show that somebody doesn't actually necessarily have to mean you harm to do you harm. And this universe is a lot of things are inverse and reciprocal. So for each action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So sometimes a person's presence in our life and influence in our life, it can and what I wanted to I'm gonna pause that and come back to that thought, is that if you live long enough, you can see some real stuff that you never thought you'd see before, in places you never thought you'd see it before. So I do 1099 work, and I do 1099 work in a delivery at times, and sometimes I avail myself of working at very off hours, like the wee hours in the middle of the morning, like 3:30 a.m., 4 a.m., when most people are asleep, but yet there's still people purchasing food deliveries, like from establishments that might be open all night. And I've gotten better about that, and I recognize now that even working at those hours is probably not worth the risk that you take being that vulnerable. But a lot of people have heard about a wolf and like a lone wolf or something like that, and a person might not actually understand what it is like to be stalked by a wolf. Now, I don't know what it would be like about a tiger. I think some people in, like, I reference India heavily on this channel, and I think at different times people in India have suffered with being stalked by different types of big cats, and that's probably true maybe in some parts of the Americas. Like when I was in the Southwest, there had been incidents of mountain lions attacking people. And then when I was in what I know of Africa, where my father's from, is that big cats can be a danger to humans. And some people have said, I can't quote the source, but that cats have always been a danger to humans, such that some of our very reflexes about danger at night, like the awareness or feeling like we're being observed at night when we're alone, and that lingering danger, also that is like highlighted in horror movies, where you can sense there's an eerie foreboding of danger and violence. It has to do with some of our experiences, our traces of experience going back to Africa on the savannas, and being stalked by cats no less than leopards. Some psychologists and evolutionary people have made the extrapolation that some of our basic fear, which actually fear is a driver and a motivating force on some level in most of our behavior and initiative as humans, but that it can be reduced to our experience of being stalked by cats. So, but in saying, I think they said something about when a person is stalked by a tiger, the tiger always engages and attacks the person in the same manner, and it might even be from the same side of the person. There's something very, it's almost like a ritual or a habit of the most deadly killers are not that creative. They actually just use what works over and over and over and over and over. Whether that's different groups in history, or different just most really effective and lethal detriments and killers, they go right back to the same tricks, and they don't have any shame about busting out the same old tricks as many times as they have to do what they need to do. So it can be similar with the tiger. But I think the experience of being stalked by a wolf might be different than being stalked by a tiger. And I've actually experienced a degree of that. I'm not sure if it was a wolf or a stray dog. I live in an area where wolves are prominent, and they're part of the folklore and tradition. And I've actually seen wolves, coyotes, but also wolves in the area where I live, in the very city, while working at off hours of the night. And sometimes it's interesting how they will approach you from an angle and at a speed you hadn't expected. So I was once driving by a scenic place in the city, and then a wolf approached and came at me against the direction I was going in my car, but almost as though I had been parked or trolling how fast the wolf was moving. And then I actually experienced a what would have been maybe a lone wolf or a stray dog not more than a mile from there soon thereafter. And I actually think that when it comes to things like deadly things that actually may factor into our destiny and our actual life purpose and path, I think there's something of pre-science in it, which is like an awareness of events before they actually happen. So I think that certain creatures like wolves, tigers, and then I've actually seen and experienced, heard a story of a man being, some surfers were like at a beach, and the man had a bad feeling about going in the water that he told his friend, and his friend told him to ignore the feeling. And soon enough, as they were in a populated beach with a lot of swimmers, the man was actually approached and engaged by a shark and died a very painful, violent death that he had a premonition of. And on some level, one could maybe appreciate that there had been a connection forming between him and that very shark. If we think about the scope and the awesomeness of some of the sensual apparatus of a shark, much of which we probably don't know, similar to a dolphin, but a dolphin would be the benign aspect of that, and then the shark would be the counterpart in the more deadly but no less sensitive and profound. And that there had maybe been a connection between the shark and that swimmer, that somehow the shark and its victim are now within the scope and the parameters of destiny and what is becoming fate. And so destiny maybe have a little bit of leeway, but then it actually slowly starts to actually become fate at a certain point, and inevitable, and in actuality, and eventuality. And eventuality is like a circumstance that actually does happen and is now fate. So what I want to say is that when we're perhaps animals like dogs and wolves, when they're doing things like, if you think about the way a dog can track a person down by smell, and I would say I might be one of the I'm a frag head, so I'm like a connoisseur of fragrances and colognes. So I might have one of the strongest, if not most unique, scent profiles in my general vicinity, both among humans or maybe even creatures and animals, just because of how strong I put on cologne and other things like finer human and animal scents that I complement the cologne with, that are known to be attractive. But what I meant to say is that sometimes when dogs, and like if you've seen the way a cat can move its head around stimuli that we're not aware of, that stimuli might not actually even be transpiring in what we know of as that particular point in linear time. I don't think that if you the guitarist John Frusciante has pointed out that flies are so quick and responsive that it could be argued that they experience time differently than we do, being like flies and insects. But the same might also be true with animals equally, where they actually are perceiving events on a different timeline and perception, to where when they're engaging us on some level, they might have had a awareness or a prescience that we would be somewhere somehow, whether based on our overall behavior or some finer level of how destiny and fate plays out. So I just meant to say that animals are very keen, both in senses but in their timing also. And if you were to be harassed or stalked by a wolf, what the experience would feel like, what it was like for me, is that I pulled up to a location to do a delivery, and I had seen a wolf probably within 1 to 2 weeks within a mile of that, as I was traversing the city on a different day. And then I had this delivery in the wee hours of the morning, and then on top of that, I think I would have had on some like strong cologne, or had clothes that had been exposed to cologne. And then I was also listening to like grating music, like hip hop and R&B music, in my car with the windows rolled up, but still with the volume at a decent level in the middle of the night. And there's a channel that teaches Native American wisdom. I think it's like I'll put it in the description. But this man said that in Native American folklore, they don't engage. They're taught not to whistle at night. And I actually had a friend who's Native American of a different nation. And one time when we were working, that boss that I referenced, he was whistling one time at work, and then this my friend who's Native American encouraged him not to whistle, and then he whistled even more as to be like a smart aleck. But I recognize there's something significant in what that my friend was perceiving and warning him not to whistle about. And then later I heard this Native American elder say that it's known that when a person sound travels far, but even more so at night when things are quiet. And so a whistle can travel very far and betray our presence at night. But I want to say that maybe perhaps me listening to music in my car doing deliveries at the wee hours of the night, if you think about how strong the perception of a wolf, no less, or a dog is in terms of hearing or any other sense, could probably likely not, it wouldn't be absurd to say that creature could perceive my presence miles off, listening to music like that in the middle of the night, even with the windows rolled up. So when I pulled up to this, so whether through scent, prescience, sound, or just merely timing and coincidence, I pulled up to do a delivery, and I saw what appeared to be a formidable wolf or a large stray dog, maybe about a block and a half away, running